All right, open up your Bibles to the book of Esther, Esther chapter 5. Esther chapter 5. So I want us to discuss a little bit some of the questions we brought up last week. These are more speculative questions, curiosities. I really think sometimes it helps us to try to look at political environments sometimes in these situations, because they will have an impact, especially when you think about, when you go back to Joseph, for example. How much of an impact did Joseph have on the people around him, the way they thought and their perspective of him? It was a pretty significant impact. I mean, he was a slave and he became charged over the whole house of Potiphar.
Where he was, he rose to the top.
That's right. People saw something, and he really had an impact on them. And I think the same is true with Mordecai and with Esther. Now, last week we were discussing, do people know who Esther is? Because when you think about it, there's so many signs that would have told people who she is, that she's a Jew. She was told by Mordecai, don't let them know that you're a Jew. But there's just some signs there that should have been made it clear. And so he speculated that maybe the king knows. Why hasn't he called her in 30 days? Maybe she had a falling out. Maybe he figured it out that she is a Jew, and that's why he hadn't called her. And we're going to see here that that is an unfounded thing. But there's a lot of things about this king that show he is not quite all there, I think, in the mind. He says things and he contradicts himself in many ways, and we'll point some of those out when we look at this chapter here as well. So in this chapter, I'm going to look at this from the perspective of not from the perspective, but from an idea of Haman. And so I want to break it down the way Warren Wiersbe does. He's got it broken down like this. He has the divine sovereignty of God in the first part, false confidence of Haman, Haman's pride, and then the malice. So let's start by looking at the first few verses here, verses 1 through 5 of Esther chapter 5. It says, now it came about on the third day, because what's she been doing for 3 days? Having a fasting, heard all her attendants, as well as all of the Jews. On the third day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, in front of the king's rooms. And the king was sitting on his royal throne in the throne room opposite the entrance to the palace. When the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, she obtained favor in his sight. And the king extended to Esther the golden scepter which was in his hand. So Esther came near and touched the top of the scepter. Then the king said to her, what is troubling you, Queen Esther? And what is your request? Even to half of the kingdom it shall be given to you. Esther said, if it pleases the king, may the king and Haman come this day to the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, bring Haman quickly, that he may do as Esther desires. So the king and Haman came to the banquet which Esther had prepared. Okay, what do we learn about Esther in these 5 verses? Remember, she's really young. I'm going to place her probably 20. Commentators put her younger than that, but I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and maybe say 20.
Brave.
Brave, very brave.
She got a plan.
Clearly, I know she didn't go in there wondering, what am I going to do when I get there? She had a plan. And it's a pretty good plan. And we'll see God working in the background to make that plan not just work, but work really, really well. Things come in pretty poorly for Haman with the way all this lines up. But what else? Give me any scripture from the book of James that might pop in your mind from what we see here. Do you think it took faith on Esther's part to go there and do these things that she's going to do and stand before the king? Yes. Absolutely. Did you're not sure about that? Or, all right.
Because the last chapter she said, if I die, I die.
Okay, fine.
That's a little more favorable
ritualistic than faithful.
But we were also saying that that's a very similar comment that Daniel's friends made. But if not, we're still not going to bow down. If the Lord saves us, he'll save us. But if not, we die.
Different situation. They refused to obey the king. She didn't do that.
No, she's going to go before the king with the chance of being put to death. And I think she was looking for, I don't think she was as scared. I think she was scared, but that's not as much as some people say, but she's looking for advice from Mordecai. And then when she decides, I'm going to have everyone fast, we're going to fast. Why does a person fast, especially the Jews? What's the fasting for? Prayer and drawing closer to the Lord. She's looking for guidance. I think it's faith. And I think it was that faith that brought her there. And the reason why I bring that up is that I think it shows that her faith wasn't just, well, I hope the Lord's going to help us get out of this. There was works behind it. Faith without works is dead. She knew that there was something she needed to do, as Mordecai indicated to her, that who knows, maybe you were put here for this very reason, and she probably came to the conclusion, he's probably right. I need to do something. God intends for me to do something. And I think it was that faith that brought her there, knowing God is going to provide a way. But if not, I'm going to at least do my best to do what I believe his will is. And that's what she's there doing. And we'll see from this chapter and the next chapter, God was with her. And he provided an amazing assortment of things to fall into place just right. So there was no way Haman was going to come out of this unscathed. And
What's different is, as Americans, we'd have walked in and said, you can't do this, you can't kill all the Jews. We wouldn't have plotted two banquets. Because we wouldn't.
well, some may have been more kind.
Be more direct.
Well, I guess so.
She's coming in from the side.
Yeah, and in a very good way, very tactful, because it builds up the pride of Haman by the what she does here, which we'll see here in a little bit. So the king sees her. Immediately, he puts the scepter out. She comes in. Their custom, I guess, is to touch the top of it. And look at what he says there in verse 3. What is troubling you? So something's wrong. Maybe it's her face, but she's got her royal robes on. Why do you think something's troubling? Why does he think that? What might she look like? Remember, she's been fasting for 3 days. Probably a little pale. You haven't been eating and drinking much. So maybe that, or maybe she's downcast. Yes, she had a sad face. Who was that had a downcast look to a king? And they asked, what's troubling you?
What's his name?
Nehemiah. Yeah, Nehemiah. And so he asked, what is troubling you? And what is your request? Because why else would she be there in the palace? And what does he offer her? Half the kingdom.
Not the first time in the Bible, or not the last time in the Bible. Didn't Herod do the same thing?
Yep.
Daughter?
John the Baptist.
Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. I don't think even half. That's just not thinking through, I think. That's a dangerous thing to offer. And so Esther, if it pleases the king, have the king and Haman come this day to the banquet that I have prepared for them. And the king was so excited. Make sure Haman knows we are going to be there at the queen's place. And so note from this section, Esther prepares herself to meet the king, right? She doesn't, like we were saying, she came prepared. She had a plan. God's in control, but why didn't Esther immediately inform the king about Haman's plot of what's going on here? Why wait? Do you think, was this something that maybe God revealed to her? Maybe she came up with this plan on her own, or maybe with her, maybe the Holy Spirit revealed it to her? I don't know. What do you think?
It's smart because she got the promise first,
Yep.
then she cashed the check.
Got the promise first. But normally, when you come in and the king asks you, what is your request, what should you do? Tell him. But she doesn't. She puts the carrot out there, though, and entices him. So clearly he was excited to see her, offered her half the kingdom, so she knows she's got him, and she offers the carrot.
I think there was a story
Yeah.
And this story plays out as we go along here with Haman. He falls right into the trap.
Yeah, yeah. And the Lord certainly provides that way and sets things up even better than perhaps she was thinking. It's kind of like that idea of, we make a request to the Lord. She probably requested the Lord quite a bit of things in her prayers. Not only did he answer it, but that and much, much more than just to save their people.
It's my point a little while ago. She had to have known that once the king said this way, it can't be undone. That's why they had to do the whole let them defend themselves.
Right.
Because the king can't say, nope, undo that, strike it.
Now, they're not allowed to strike down laws. Once it's written, that's it. It stays. And that's another topic. So, wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right place there. And she wanted Haman, and only Haman, present when she told the king about his evil plot. And of course, the Lord is with her in this. So, we come to the end there in verse 5, and then look at verses 6 through the first part of verse 9. This is where we'll call this false confidence. So she had prepared that banquet. As they drank their wine at the banquet, the king said to Esther, "What is your petition? For it shall be granted to you. And what is your request? Even to half of the kingdom, it shall be done." So Esther replied, stop right here for a second. So I'm sure the king has made, extravagant gift offers to people before. And most of the time, I bet you people would say, I would like money, or maybe camels, or maybe some great thing. He's given the queen 2 opportunities for great riches, or whatever she pretty much wants. And what has she asked for each time? Come and eat with me. Come and eat with me. She said there in verse 7 and 8, so Esther replied, "My petition and my request is this," and remember, the king is there and Haman is there. "If I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition," because it's going to be such a big request compared to what you've offered to me, "and to do what I request, may the king and Haman come to the banquet which I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king says." Then Haman went out that day glad and pleased of heart. Now why? Why would Haman be so glad, so pleased of heart?
Because he was singled out with the king.
Yeah, not only does he got the kings here, now the queen wants him there. Maybe she wants his counsel on whatever it is she's got on her mind or on her heart, and he's probably feeling like, boy, I have got this king and I've got this queen. I am probably the most powerful man in the whole kingdom, because this king is really kind of aloof. He really is. We'll see that here in just a little bit. He doesn't really know, I think, what's going on. And I'll show you why here in just a little bit. So he's pretty excited. He's on cloud 9. He's up there. Later, there also in verse 9, "But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, and that he did not stand up or tremble before him, Haman was filled with anger against Mordecai. Haman controlled himself, however, went to his house, and sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh. Then Haman recounted to them the glory of his riches, and the number of his sons, and every instance where the king had magnified him, and how he had promoted him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman also said, "Even Esther the queen, let no one but me come with the king to the banquet which she had prepared. And tomorrow also I am invited by her with the king. Yet all of this does not satisfy me every time I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate." So he recounts, his glory, his riches, how many sons he has. Every time the king has, lifted him up and done things, even the queen wants me to be present there with the king, just me alone. I mean, how much glory does a man have? But all of that amazing stuff and all that's happened for him, all the blessings, what is it to him? Nothing, because of one man. Now before, Mordecai would not bow down to him, right? And he was upset about that. Now he's not standing up. So I get this picture. He's probably sitting in a chair whittling something perhaps. He looks up, sees him coming, and just goes back to his whittling. He's not going to give that guy a moment of his time. He's not going to stand for him. He's not going to bow for him. And he infuriates him. He can't get it out of his mind, right? What do we call that? Mental illness.
Or mental block.
Yeah, I would
Yeah, obsession with the guy.
I would call that beyond narcissism. He is so full of himself that he needs everyone to love him. He needs everyone, and if not, they need to die. But he doesn't even know what to do about Mordecai. And he's already got it set up to where they're going to die. So why does he care? I mean, if not that I would ever be like that, but if that was me, I'd be thinking, yeah, don't worry about not saying, you're dead, pal. You're dead. But no, he doesn't even think about that. He can't take it. Huh?
He's not patient. In a year,
Yeah. So, I wanted to step back one more thing. I wanted to ask about this question. So Esther goes to the king, and we asked ourselves last week, does the king know that she's a Jew? And does Haman know that she's a Jew? What do you think now at this chapter? Do you think either one of them know that she's a Jew?
no,
No?
because they're not paying attention.
Okay, not paying attention?
I think Haman knows.
I agree. Haman does not know. The king may know, but not understand or forgot. And I'll explain that to you because in the next chapter, chapter 6, the Lord keeps him from falling asleep. I don't know if you've read ahead to the chapter. The Lord keeps him from falling asleep. He wakes up and he has the chronicles brought to him of the kings. And he reads about Mordecai had saved him once. He forgot. He forgot that Mordecai had saved him from death once. And he asked, has anything been done for him? Well, no, not yet. And he asked, has anything been done for Mordecai the Jew? Because he knows Mordecai is a Jew. No, nothing's been done. So he wants to honor Mordecai. And of course, you remember how that plays out, and it ends up being Haman that has to honor him, the Jew, who's going to be dead in a year from the king's edict. And he didn't even consider or think about that at all. I mean, come on. The guy doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. He's aloof. Completely aloof.
Let's make some assumption. One assumes that Esther is keeping kosher. So again, there have been signs.
Oh, yeah.
But it's possible the king wasn't educated with the word.
Well, or not care. Haman seemed like he would notice, but he is probably so full of himself and excited just to be there, and he's not seeing what's happening.
It's also possible dress. Again, I don't know if they were doing with gold,
Oh, I don't know.
all that stuff that shows that they couldn't wear them.
Well, she wore her royal robes, so her attire was whatever the king has assigned for her.
Do that just a minute. So Haman may have been more obvious by his dress.
Mordecai, okay. But yeah, and there's I'm sure there were signs, but what they were we don't know. But let's look at the last verse, verse 14. Then Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends said to him, have a gallows 50 cubits high made, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on it. Then he joyfully with the king. Then go joyfully with the king to the banquet. And the advice pleased Haman, so he had the gallows made. Now, side note, is the gallows 50 feet tall, or were they put up on a 50-foot high platform or hill? There's a debate on that. If I had to guess, I would say it was on a high elevated place. So everyone could see what he does to Mordecai. He has him hung. I think that's what is being said there. And it's all going to play into the Lord's hand the way he wants it, because we know Haman's going to be the one hung on that after he gives the royal treatment to Mordecai on that horse.
How many, just timeline? It would be hard to have that done overnight, so how long between this point and Mordecai's time? How long before the gallows is?
I don't know. They have another banquet. Maybe it's a week between banquets, so I'm not sure. Or not.
Says tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow? Oh, yeah, she does say tomorrow. So I don't know. But he is one of the most powerful people. How long would it take for them to build gallows? Probably not long if you get enough guys and you have plenty of slave labor. But it is done, so I don't know how much time. I didn't look into that. But it pleased him to take that advice. Now, these same friends and his wife, when he, after, we'll see in the next chapter, after he has to give honor to Mordecai, tell him, well, since he's a Jew, if he really is, you're done for. Why do you think they would say that in chapter 6? So read ahead, think about that. That tells you they know something about the Jews and the God of the Jews. In fact, let's look. Where's that at? Okay, yeah, in verse 13 of chapter 6, Haman recounted to Zeresh his wife and to all his friends everything that had happened to him. Then his wise men and Zeresh his wife said to him, if Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish origin, you will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him. Why didn't you tell me that last time? Right? But why did they say that? Why did they say that? Well, they must have known something, yeah, true, but they must have known something about the God of the Jews, and perhaps all these things happening made them think, all these stories we've read and probably discounted, they must be true. They must be true, because look what's happening here. This is just amazing how all this is falling together. You're going to lose.
Same reason Rahab helped the children of Israel.
Yep. She saw and she knew.
Heard stories
Yep. And
about how powerful the Jews were because of their God.
very true. How powerful the Jews were because of their God from Rahab. So one of the things we usually glean from this chapter is pride. And the pride of Haman is very strong. And we'll see more of that on display, even greater next week when we look at chapter 6. So I encourage you to read ahead. Think about those things as we look through these. Remember, the name of God is never mentioned in the whole book, but clearly he is alluded to, and the providence of God is on full display in the book of Esther. Great stuff to learn. And what's the proverb? Pride goeth before the fall, and great will be the fall of Haman. Yeah, I had a few marked in here. See if I can. Well, maybe I should pull those up. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before the fall. Proverbs 29:23, a man's pride will bring him low. Proverbs 6:16 and 19, there are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him. Haughty eyes, and that's the one we started with, the series with. These are the things we would find in here. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers. And so many other proverbs will all point back to these things and show God knows the hearts of men.